Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshops, where we get together in the middle of the week and we learn more about technology. My name is John Kennedy. I'm the host for APCUG's workshops. With me today is Bill James, our co-host, and Judy Tallur rounds out our Zoom team, and she's the gal with all the questions and gives out to people to do the answers. And she'll be sharing with us at the end on any last minute, end of the year, beginning of the new year, things with our workshops. I'm excited today. We've had this fall, we did a big series of workshops on learning Linux from a Windows user's point of view. And I've been getting emails from Windows people who have been giving a try to Linux and people who are working on Linux. And I'm very happy to see that just about all of it is positive comments, small little issues that we can resolve. And hopefully today we've got a whole number of people that I can see around the globe who are also Linux users. So if we have questions that come up, we'll get people to help answer and have an end of a good new year. One of the most exciting for me, people who gave a try to Linux, because he was here all the workshops listening, he actually went ahead and did what we said, got a hold of a Linux distribution, the Mint one that we were doing, and created the thumb drive so he could run it live. Then got a hold of an older computer like Orv said to do, and installed Linux Mint. And I'm going to let him share his success story and what he's done to make the Linux Mint laptop function for him as well as his other devices. And the exciting thing is it's our co-host Bill James who is going to be sharing. He is actually on his Linux machine. You'll see his name twice because he's recording and has his Windows machine on the side, but you see him right now, he is on his Linux machine. So I'm going to ask him to unmute and share his screen and talk about his adventure into the Linux world.
Well, thanks, John. Hopefully everyone can see my screen and can hear me.
Yes to both.
All right, so I need to do just one thing here. Okay. Well, this has been really an interesting experience. And as you see, this is my desktop to Linux machine that I installed Linux Mint 21. I believe it's called Vanessa. And it was really painless actually. I didn't try to dual boot. I just right-clicked. This as an ASUS laptop, has a Core i3 processor, and I believe it's 8 gigs of memory. And I just went for it all and just wiped Windows 10 off and installed Linux fresh. And so as you see here, this is mostly the things that I got when I got it installed, with my little menu button or the activity button here, and this is on my panel. And then here is my file browser, which sort of acts like a file manager in Windows. And then I have Firefox, which came along with it. And then I installed Chrome, which I'll tell you how I did that. And then this is the terminal. So this is basically vanilla Linux as far as I know. It also this machine currently had Bluetooth, so it installed that, and then here's the Dropbox web browser that I also installed. And the thing for me, and I'll explain in my presentation, is that I really can't use a standalone computer. I need to have it in sync with my other computers so I can get my files and folders. And so the way that I decided to make this work was I had to install some commonality among all my devices. And one of those would be Dropbox, and the other one was the Chrome browser. So that's where we're going from this. And then I can answer questions of anything that people might have. And if you see that I erred in my ways, please correct. I'll be more than happy to have that discussion. So I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint presentation, which, by the way, I did do this presentation in LibreOffice before, and then at one point I had to use PowerPoint to finish it up, but I kind of switched back and forth. But that really was not a big issue. So I'm going to go here to my my home folder. And I'm going to go here to downloads because that's where I have that document. And so we'll bring that up.
Bill, you can just hit start there and it'll recover it.
Start. I think it's going to recover the wrong document there.
Oh. Yeah, there were 2 copies in there, I think.
No, I really want the one that had the -1 after it. Yeah, this is correct. All right, we're good. All right, so this is actually displaying in LibreOffice Impress, which is the LibreOffice version of PowerPoint. So we'll just start the slideshow. I want to thank Judy Trelaw. She helped me come up with ideas on this, and particularly she wanted to use the title, as you can see, is a blend of Linux and Windows apps, and of Windows apps and Linux. So it's syncing your files and folders, which is really a passion of mine. So synchronization of file sharing, then this is my opinion, because cloud storage is everywhere in today's multi-device environment. And so one of the issues that I had with Linux was to be able to have file synchronization with my other Linux devices, x86, iOS, and Android. I have all 3 of those operating systems, and so I needed to be able to use those in a way that the way I work. And I'll give an example. I haven't been feeling well the last couple of days, so if I'm hacking some, please excuse me. But I write a weekly article, and unfortunately, Monday was kind of a bad day for me, and I went to bed forgetting that I needed to start working on this article, or even writing it. And I actually started writing it from my phone because I had some ideas on there. So I used my phone And this was about 10 o'clock at night. And I went ahead and wrote some bullet points and ideas, and did a great majority of it. And then about, I said I would get up early, about 7 o'clock, and try to finish it up. But I finished it up on my iPad, and I was still working from my bed. And so I was able to draw that particular document from my phone to my iPad and complete the project. But this is the way I normally work, because I'm not one to really sit in front of a desk anymore. That's me. I did that too many years when I was working in real time. So now I'm retired. I just use my laptops or any device I happen to have. So for me, file sharing was very important. And the way I decided that we were going to do it for this project was use cross-platform apps as the solution. So the first one that I enlisted was Dropbox, because I have a Dropbox account, and that particular application is on all my devices. It's on my my iPad. It's on all my Windows 10 computer, my Windows 11 computer, as well as my phone. So it was an idea application to use for this. And what I did to install Dropbox, I opened the terminal and entered the following command. So this is the only time that I actually had to use any kind of terminal commands to work on this project. And it wasn't that intimidating. I found the information online. I just went and copied the information and just followed the instructions. And it was a no-brainer to do. So first what I did was I wanted to update my app packages using this command below, which is sudo app update. And then I now install Dropbox by running the command as shown, sudo app install Dropbox. And you see a long line of things processing, kind of the early days of DOS, if you remember that. And then once the installation was complete, the Dropbox icon was added to my applications under Internet. And then I clicked it on the menu, which is the menu button, and then I went up to Internet, Dropbox, and then I start installing Dropbox. You may have to reboot your computer to make this all happen, but it just depends on your situation. In my case, I had to reboot to see the icon, but this is what it looks like. So here, if I hit the menu button, or John told me was also called the activity button, it shows applications. And here is Internet. And on the Internet tab, you're going to see a list of different apps that you might have installed. And so this is the one that appeared after I ran the update. So I clicked on Dropbox, and it prompted me to install Dropbox. And so on the next screen, I got this, and I just clicked OK. And then the Dropbox installer started downloading the program and installs. And then I signed into my account. I already had a Dropbox account, so all I needed was my email address, the password that I use to connect this program or this application to this computer. And then I got this that said you should see your computer was successfully linked if you provided the correct credentials. And so that was it. And the next thing was, since I already had files in my Dropbox account, I could see those almost immediately. But if you need to add a file to your Dropbox account, it's really quite simple. It's just a drag and drop process, really. So once you download the mobile and desktop apps, it's time to put Dropbox to work by adding your files, pictures, and videos. So this is you want to do any additional ones, but all the ones that you currently have in Dropbox, if you're a subscriber, that you don't need to do this. But to add a file, it's simply just a matter of dragging and dropping from the computer's file system. Or you can go to the more complicated steps as follows. You can sign in to www.dropbox.com, click on all files on the left sidebar, navigate to the folder where you want to save your file or folder, click upload, and select upload files, select the folder you want to upload or the file you want to upload, and then navigate to the correct file folder on your computer's file system. And then if you're going to add any files to Dropbox on your computer, it's again a drag and drop process. Or you can use the Save As menu option in most applications to save files directly to your Dropbox folder. And then, of course, they will be automatically synced to your Dropbox.com and to your Dropbox desktop or mobile apps on any other device that you're connected, that's connected to your account. And then if you want to add a file from your desktop to your Dropbox account, like with File Explorer in Windows or Finder in Mac, you can drag and drop into the desktop application. Again, just drag and drop the file into the Dropbox folder on your hard drive. Select the Dropbox folder when using the Save As option in most applications. Like to use Microsoft Office, just add a little time saver. You can dive into the general area of preferences and you can make Dropbox the default Save As location. If you want to add a file using your mobile app, you can manually upload files, photos, and videos to your Dropbox account using the mobile app. The steps you take to manually upload files on a mobile device will vary slightly depending on the type of device you use. And some will actually allow the camera part of it. If you take photos, you have a choice of saving it directly to Dropbox if you desire to use that. And then, of course, sharing files and folders from the Dropbox account is a matter of signing again into the Dropbox.com, and you just hover over the item you want to share and click the share icon that appears, and then type in the email or the name of the person, people, or groups you'd like to share it with. And then you want to further select Can Edit or Can View from the drop-down menu. And then click Settings to customize who has access or disable downloads. You can require a password and set an expiration date also. Click Share File or Share Folder. Recipients receive an email invitation to the content you shared. You can also click Copy Link. If the link hasn't been created yet, you can click on Create and Copy Link. And then that link, you just will be copied to your clipboard. And then you just can paste it into an email or chat or any other message system you're using. Sharing a file or folder using the Dropbox desktop app. You'll just open the Dropbox folder on your computer, click Share, type an email address or name or group of the person you want to share it with. And then, of course, you can make the selection if they can edit the file or they can only view it. And then click Share, and they'll receive an email with the link to the file or folder. And if you're using a mobile device, such as your phone, you can navigate to the file folder you want to share, and then you'll see on the ellipses over to the upper right corner, and you type, select the share, and then create a link. And then if the link is already created for the content, just tap share, make to anyone with the link can view. Select the way you'd like to share the link from. The options: can edit, can view. Either option will allow them to make a comment. The other application that was important to me was to be able to use Google Chrome. And in this instance, again, it was a matter of getting it installed. And it can be a little tricky because it's not usually included as the default browser on any distro or installation from official Linux repositories. Firefox is the open source and usually the most popular for the Linux distros. But there is a version of Linux there is a Chrome version for Linux that was developed by Google. You just have to do a little resourceful to get it installed. So what I did in this case was I downloaded the Google Chrome from the Google website, and then I clicked on download. And then on the page that said Get Chrome for Linux, I selected the package which matched the distro that I am using. For example, for Debian and Ubuntu, you want to select the DEB version. And if you're using CentOS or RHEL, you want to select the RPM package. And just click accept and install. And then here again, you'll find the Google Chrome in the menu, and we started from here. So what I showed you earlier, where my Dropbox appeared under Internet, the same happened here for Chrome. So I just clicked on it and logged onto my Chrome with my Gmail account, and it synced all my bookmarks, history, browser plugs, and anything else that I use on my normal PCs. And then one of the things about updating the Google Chrome browser is that it adds a repository to your source.list directory under the Google Chrome repo Ubuntu. And then Google Chrome will be updated along with the system updates provided by Ubuntu via the software updater. And for the final point, if you see an error that occurs, this application, the application Google Chrome is closed unexpectedly. There might be just a temporary issue, and some browser tab or extension crash for some reason. If you keep seeing that pop up, then you'll want to start Google Chrome in Ubuntu, and you can use the ignore future problems of this program version. And it's up to you if you want to send the crash report. So that's kind of my experience so far, and I'll take any questions. But the whole idea about this, I think John will make a point of this as well, is that it's all about the operating system. It doesn't matter what operating system you use. It's just being able to use the programs that you like or want, regardless of what platform it is. And so for me, one of the important things, of course, is being able to sync it. So these are the applications I use. I also am going to show you where you can also be able to use Dropbox, which not Dropbox, I'm sorry, OneDrive. Since I use Microsoft products extensively, and OneDrive is my #1 cloud storage. And I'll show you how I did that. But I'll take some questions now, if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to reiterate what you said because you said exactly. It's just like cars. They all work the same, but you customize the car to your fit and how things work for you. But yeah, if anybody has any questions for Bill,
I do.
good. Otherwise, other than Judy, you can hit your reactions button, and then I can give you the permission to ask that question. All right, Judy.
Why did you install Chrome instead of the generic Chromium?
I've never used Chromium, and this is my ignorance because when I first encountered Chromium, I thought it was a virus. So I've never really felt comfortable with it, although it's quite a legitimate browser. But the few times I've had it, it's come across on my machine. It's been so invasive that it's really just really difficult for me to handle. So I try to avoid it at all costs. It's the same one. It looks like the Google Chrome, except that it's blue, rather than having the tricolored, I don't know what you call those, orbs or whatever. It's just strictly blue, but it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Are you using Mate?
Yes, because he's using the Mint Mate. Yeah.
Bill, how are you using Zoom? Through Firefox browser?
No, I just downloaded Zoom on the machine. It's an app.
And you're using it through Chrome, not Firefox.
No, I'm not using it through either browser. I just installed the client onto the computer.
Okay. And
I just downloaded it, and it functions just like. In fact, you can't tell the difference for the Linux version of Zoom from the Windows version.
okay, I have two generic questions, so we'll go over to raised hands. And Stephen?
Well, nope.
Oh, nope. You have an answer.
No. I've got comment because I have to give him permission. Just to clarify for those people who are the non-Linux users or just getting into it, that Chromium was the original. Chrome came from Chromium, and Google made that first. And then what happened is they closed the source to make Chrome. Now, Bill made some comments about some problems running at Chromium. If you do a bunch of work with the Google environment, it doesn't work as well with Chromium. And so people will download Chrome because if they do a login and do all of that sort of stuff, it works better with Chrome. But there are a number of us that are strictly Chromium users on a desktop, and for us it works just fine because we're probably not using all of the Chrome environment on that. Okay, we'll switch for right now, and
I have another question for the chat box. Did you save LibreOffice Impress files as PowerPoint on purpose?
Well, I started the project as Impress. I used Impress to start the PowerPoint presentation, and then I saved it to Dropbox, and then the next time I started working on it, I worked on it on my PC, and I just pulled it up from Dropbox and finished it up or added some comments, and then just saved it back. So I went back and forth, but as you notice, there wasn't any issues between editing and presenting it. So I go ahead.
And when I edited, I pulled it up in PowerPoint and saved it and sent it back to him. So we use both Impress and PowerPoint both.
okay,
Stephen, you're on.
Stephen asked to unmute.
Thanks very much, Mr. James. I really totally agree with you about the files you create and use and not the applications. Some of us are skeptical about the use of cloud systems to varying degrees. And for me, and I would suggest anyone else here looking, I implemented a small network attached storage system on my house network, and that's where I share everything. That's all I have to say. Thank you for the opportunity to make a comment, and thank you for your presentation, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We appreciate you making a comment. And over to Tim, you're on.
Okay, James, that was a good presentation, especially for beginners in particular. But also too, I'm curious, when you put the Chrome on, how did you get the icon on your taskbar, or it's called panel in Linux?
I just right clicked and said, set to
Add to panel.
add the panel.
Okay. Now, where did it put it on your panel? On
It put it adjacent to, actually I moved these icons around because what I did, I right clicked and unlocked
that's exactly what I'm getting into.
yeah, I unlocked this, and then I was able to slide them so they would be next to each other. And then I moved the terminal here to the end.
Right. A lot of people don't recognize this, and I found that most of the time on my Linuxes, it puts the icon to the far left. You click it to bring up that little pop-up menu, click on move your cursor pointer to where you want to drop it, click again, and it's right where you want it, and you can do the moves as much as you want to. But it was very confusing when I first came across that characteristic.
Right, but you know, I've because of some of my skills that I know in Windows, I just always try those and they see if they work. So right click, you know, if you don't find what you're looking for, then try something. You could look at properties or anything to be able to navigate your way around any operating system. But usually, right clicking will give you some options, and that's what I found. Discovered, you know, lock the panel, and that sort of. I understood that to mean that it was going to that was locked. I couldn't move it unless I unchecked that box.
Right. And also, you did the terminal update command, which is what I learned originally, and didn't always use the GUIs because they the early ones didn't work well. But if you go down your panel, you've got the shield that tells you whether you're up to date or not. Even though
Yes.
it says right now you're up to date, if you click it, it'll bring up the GUI, which a lot of people prefer, and it will do the update for you by hitting refresh. And then if there's any updates, you can install them.
Right. One other thing too, I didn't mention, I didn't do it because I didn't know what effect it would have on my presentation today, but there is an update for this version of Linux. It popped up on the side, but to get back to it, if you go over to administration and down here to system reports, click here, and it'll come up and say that there's a new version of available. I didn't, I haven't installed it yet, but as you can see, it's showing up now, but
Yeah, it's the running system checks is doing the update function to see if there's anything new. You also periodically have to install a new update manager all by itself, and then you can proceed to get your normal updates. But if you click that little shield down on the panel, it'll bring up the real software
Yes.
update.
if you see now, right at the bottom of it is saying your system is up to date.
Yes, but
Right here, if I run the report, it comes up with this.
right, but if you click the shield, it'll bring up the real software updater, hit the refresh on the screen, and it'll tell you if you got any updates. And then,
Oh, okay. Whoops. Hold on a second.
oh, your
Oh,
presentation.
now I'm back. Yeah. Yeah, okay, the shield.
Yeah, just click that.
This machine is slow.
Now, this is the normal GUI for especially beginners. Now, if you click refresh, that's doing the terminal update.
Okay.
And then it'll
I
show
won't,
you any
I won't do that now because it might.
No,
I'm
it
not-
won't. Go ahead. Go ahead, Bill. Because all it's doing at the bottom, it says it's just checking
Yeah.
if there are any updates to let you know.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's not actually doing the update. It's just doing the pseudo app update to check your libraries for any changes. And then it gives you a list of what's available, and it's up to you when you want to install it.
All right. I see Mr. Woodward made it.
So it says everything's hunky-dory right now, and you can close that and go about your work.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Tim.
No problem.
And on to Jim.
Well, I was going to jump in here because
Okay.
of where Bill is right now. I wanted to make sure Tim was done. Is that it, Tim? I'll lower your hand. Oh, I
No,
didn't
you
want you to. I didn't want you to close that. Go back and open up Libra Impress. Okay, yeah, and minimize that. What I wanted to point out here was because for Bill, as he had mentioned that he's a big Microsoft user, he's used to what Microsoft calls the ribbon for menus. And before ribbon, we always had the drop-down menus, and LibreOffice kept that after Microsoft moved to ribbons because they knew that a lot of people didn't like the ribbons. Well, now that we have a lot of people who are former Microsoft users who are either going back to LibreOffice for the free work or to Linux for Linux, LibreOffice now has two different versions of menus. I still am the old traditional drop-down menu, but Bill has his set up for the ribbon. So it's very comfortable for him, from what he's done with Microsoft Office and their ribbons to work with either the Writer or the Impress, because it's very similar to what he's used to doing.
Right.
Okay. Well, I have something else to do with you later, but right now we'll go over to Jim and ask him to share with us.
Okay, I'm Jim Coyle. I'm new to this group.
Yay!
I've had problems with my own schedule, just trying to match up with the schedule for some of these seminars. But this being a holiday week, it's
Great.
okay, you know. But my question has to do with, and I'm very interested in the fact that you use this cross-platform, Bill. And I'm curious about whether you have to be concerned about, for example, using the Microsoft type extensions to the file names as opposed to the Apple approach of not having any extension on the files. How does that work? I know some applications will, and maybe this is the way it is with the LibreOffice. They have their own sets of kinds of extensions, but some of the Microsoft Office stuff will open those and vice versa. How much problem do you have in making sure you save something with an extension, for example, that will work across the platforms?
That's a good question. And the only one I'm really familiar with is LibreOffice, and there for this particular presentation, the LibreOffice extension is ODP. But Windows, Microsoft Office is able to read an ODP file, and it will convert it when you save it. It'll say, well, this was done in a version of ODP. Do you want to save it in that format, or do you want to save it in the older version of PowerPoint? And I just leave it with the ODP, and I have no problems. And it'll open up in either one.
All right, so I'll jump in with the big technical part to teach Bill, since he's now getting into it. He needs to know. With Linux doesn't pay attention to extensions. You can put anything you want, and it won't make a difference, because Linux reads the very first few characters of the file that we can't see, and it knows what the file type is. So a lot of times in Linux, people don't even put extensions. However, if you're going to deal with the Windows world, Windows has to have the extensions. So Linux kind of has an automatic that it will add the extensions, even though Linux doesn't need them. And I've proved that myself. I save files with no extension, open them up just fine. But if I go into the Windows world, they have no clue what to do with the file. So if you're going to do what Bill does and go back and forth with cross-platform software, and he's going to do it on Windows, then he has to make sure he saves it with an extension that Windows will be able to know, oh, I open up this program to run this. With Linux, not something we have to worry about. So it depends on if you live in just the Linux world, it's a no issue. If you're sharing between the two worlds, then as Bill said, he can save it. Now, in past years, when our Office could not read the open document text, so we had to save it as a PPT file or a doc file, because LibreOffice, it's a whole different ballgame, has hundreds of different formats that it can save as. So you save it as the native one. Now Microsoft realizes that a lot of people are using open document format, and so it can now read the ODT, so he could use either one, and it would work that way.
Right, and in my case, I really paid no attention to the file extension at all. I just saved it in the location that I wanted, and it put the extension that was needed.
Well, it also seems like that from what you've said, the storage area or file name structure and that type of thing is kind of common among, I guess, Linux and Microsoft and Apple and so forth. You know, like I use a cell phone and an iPad as well as Windows on a laptop, and I can save them to, I guess I could save it to open, what is it called?
Open document.
Open documents. One of the things too that that I use is on my cell phone. I have the web apps that are free to download on any mobile device, and so it's going to read those documents in the native format. So whatever, if it's saved as a Word document, it'll open up as a Word document. So I have that installed on my cell phone, and I have it installed on my, I have the Office products for Mac installed on my iPad. I subscribe to Office 365. So I can have up to 6 devices, you know, it doesn't matter whether they're Windows or whatever. And so I just save it to those devices. I have no problems, you know, using creating documents on any platform.
Right.
But I don't ever make, I don't think I ever, the only time I'm really concerned about selecting the extension is for photos. For my regular documents like Excel spreadsheets or Word documents, I don't really have too much concern, but I do take into consideration when I'm for photos, because sometimes it'll get a wonky extension that some programs won't open.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Get the Kim here. There he is.
Okay. Hi, Bill. Long time no talk to you.
Okay, you're a little bit soft, Kim.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me change the microphone. Can you hear me now?
Much
Yeah.
better.
Okay. Hi, Bill. Long time no talk to.
I know.
I was just talking to him last night. I have a quick question. I haven't been in these meetings about Linux, so this is kind of an embarrassing question for me.
Nope.
I haven't heard the what's been going on with this. I understand that this is Mint, right?
Correct.
That you're using. The question is, what is the window manager in Mint that you're using?
Bill, do you know the official name?
Yes, it's Vanessa.
No, for your file manager.
Oh, the file manager is just called File Browser.
Actually, that's why I figured it's Kaja, C-A-J-A.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the layout that you know is on here, because usually when I use Linux, it's either Ubuntu or I use Kali Linux a lot.
Yeah, and so you're using the Nautilus file manager usually there.
Right.
In Mint Cinnamon, we're using a modified version of Nautilus called Nemo. And the Mint people in the Mate division said, well, we're going to modify it, and it's the Kaja one. And then in the XFC version of Mint, they use Thunar.
Thunar. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, John, is this not my, this is my file manager, right?
That is the generic name. It is a file manager, but it has a specific, just like it's a sedan or a station wagon, but specific. If you go to help and go to about, it'll say this is Kaja.
Oh, there you go. Kaja.
And that's just somebody's people with the open source that we've talked about for all these years, that you can take the recipe for a file manager. And as Kim said, the structure looks a little bit different. With the Mate one, the Kaja, all the computer things are first, then the network. And in another one, it might be the drives would be listed, and then the computer stuff. So they're just, and we have a whole bunch of them. And so you just find which file manager version you're most comfortable with the looks of, and then you use that one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, I'm just really happy just to call it, what they say, file browser. That's
Yeah.
what you do. Covered over it.
Yeah, that's just a generic one, but because we have many choices, they have a actual last name, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, is that it, Kim?
Yeah, it's just, a lot of the window managers that I've seen under Linux will allow you to do things like, you can pull up like the terminal, if you will, but you can see through it and see windows behind it and stuff.
Oh yeah, transparency.
Right. So
yeah.
I was just curious about what this particular one was.
Yeah, this is Kaja, and like I said, what's nice about Linux is you can be running Mint, and or Mint Mate, and I can go get the one that Orv likes the best, and Dolphin, and use it on here, because you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Bill, I'm glad you're here because I wanted to see something, and then I'll come back to it after we get to Andrew. Andy, unmute there. Okay, Andy, you should be able to unmute now.
I did.
Good.
Bill, number one, nice job. Just wanted to throw in 2 cents on the file extensions and the file managers. When I was dipping my toes into the cross-platform arena, I took the weenie way out. That's a technical term. Weenie way out on LibreOffice because the Windows platforms seem to be the most restrictive. So in LibreOffice, I just changed the default in LibreOffice, so it saved my files in the Microsoft format. So even if I created a new LibreOffice Calc spreadsheet, there was no problem opening it in Excel, for instance.
Right.
Then later on, I went to the open document, but it's a simple setting to change it so that LibreOffice saves in the native Microsoft Office format. And as far as the file managers, yeah, it's a whole mix of Kaja, Thunar, and whatever. And I wasn't real crazy about any of them because they were all single pane. There are a whole bunch of extras out there. If you go back to way back when with Midnight Commander, for instance, it gave you the 2 panels. And the one that I use on all kinds of Linux distributions and on Windows is called Double Commander. It's a 2-panel display, but on each panel, you can have multiple tabs. You get a nice preview of most of your files. It's worth checking out.
Yeah.
Getting about the, whatever comes with it. It's a quick download. It's in all, I think every repository that I've ever been into. It's called Double Commander. It's kind of interesting.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay, great, Andy. Thanks. Bill, hit F3 on your keyboard right now. In a lot of our Linux file managers, we can get 2 panes side by side. Thunar was one that didn't do it, so that's why I didn't like it as much. But with this one, this is great because on the right-hand side, go to desktop folder on the right-hand side. No, on the.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, close that one out. Okay. Where it says desktop, yeah. On the right-hand side, go to desktop.
I did.
Okay, no. Next column over. Okay. Okay, somebody's got some echoing going.
You want me to be on the nav part or on the file part?
Well, go to documents on the right-hand tab. No, you're not in the right-hand tab. You're still on the far
Oh,
right.
I'm sorry. My bad. Yeah, gotcha.
Now go back to the see, everything's the same here. Click on Bill in the middle. Click on home. Nope. In the middle column, click on home. Okay, now double click on Bill to get back in so you can open up desktop there. Now open up desktop in the middle. Okay, now on the right-hand side, right click one of your Linux presentations on the far right. And what you scroll, the menu doesn't have everything. Scroll, open up. Now right click on one of those. And what's really neat about this, see where it says copy to, move to, that Microsoft finally added to their manager. We've had this for a lot. So if you go down to copy to, it just says other pane. And so no dragging, dropping, it just will copy to whatever folder on the right-hand side was. And what Andy was saying is that the commander even can go with each side having multiple tabs. So if you're really into working with your file managers. Tim, I'll come back to you in just a minute. Orv's got to leave, and I need to have him answer a few questions before he has to take off. So, Orv, we had somebody come in and send us a question. They were wanting to use Linux, but they were needing to rip CDs and basically DVDs. And you know, the question about, well, what do you use in Linux to rip DVDs?
Okay, let me share my screen.
Okay,
If Bill would stop sharing his, that would be helpful.
I can stop him.
Okay.
We'll come back to Bill's.
Let me do my main screen here. I was telling John earlier, I've used K3B for ripping CDs and DVDs for decades now. It comes as part of the KDE Plasma collection, but you can install it on pretty much any distro. It will pull in the dependencies. You probably see a bunch of libraries, but we've got a lot of disk space. So I went to see if I had it installed here, and I did install it recently. And I started it up, but it said, hey, you don't have an optical drive. And I remembered I had bought a new computer about 8 months ago, and it didn't come with an optical drive. And I thought, well, how am I going to demo K3B? So we're going to do a little bit of Linux geekery here, because my wife's computer, which is an older computer about 5 feet that way, does have an optical drive on it. So we can do it over there. So a little magic. You can see my console, right, Bill?
Yes.
Is it large enough? Let me make it larger. And settings, we'll make the current 14 point. That's not too bad, but we'll make it a little bigger.
Orv,
Yeah.
let me add something else to that question. He says when he uses K3B, a message says, sorry, K3B uses transcode to rip video DVDs. Please make sure it is installed. How can I solve this problem?
By installing transcode. I'll show you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to do a remote connection to my wife's computer, which is known as SC. That's short for stupid computer, because when I was introducing her to Linux, that's what she called it. But that was many years ago. So you normally, secure shell is what you use to connect to a remote computer, but I'm going to add this little capital X. And what that does is, let me explain it. And you'll notice Now you can see over here, oops, sorry, my bad. You can see I'm connected to SC. Who am I? I am OBeach. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to install it, which says go find K3B. It's not there, so I have to install it. And I'm going to do the whole command line install. And because I'm an old school Linux admin, I just switch over to root. Oops, wrong password. Now I'm root. Now, I don't have to do an apt update or anything. I can say apt-y install K3B. And it'll install all of the dependencies. And we're on a 300 megabit per second link, and she's got an SSD, so it doesn't take very long. Okay, get out of root, now I'm me, and I'll call up that old which command, and it says it's in user bin, so it's installed. So here's the deal. I'm on a command line link over there, and I'm going to launch K3B over there. But it's a GUI. So the command will run over there. But fortunately, since I put that $X in there, it says forward any GUI screens over here. So if you can wrap your head around that, the application's running over there, it's going to display here. Let's see if this works.
And as always, I've learned something new today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Starting it from the command line, you can see all the stuff it starts up, but you'll notice down here at the bottom it says system problems none, network IDs, don't care. So anyway, this is a great burner. You can start a new data project, a new audio project, copy medium, and you can do all of these things. Now, that's great. It never asked me for transcode. I'm going to quit out of here. I'm going to app search transcode because I never heard about this issue before. I did a little research before this. And it found, let's see if we can install it. Just, which transcode? Okay, I'm going to switch back to root. You can use sudo if you want. The apt program is a package manager, similar to DNF for Red Hat type programs. And if you happen to be using OpenSUSE, it's Zipper with a Y. But those are package managers, and they depend on other programs. Apt depends on a program called dpackage. And you can call dpackage -L for list all of them, which you really don't want to do. But I'm going to see that vertical pipe sends the results so that to grep means search for, not there. So let's see if it'll install just for grins. Yeah, no installation candidate. So apparently the functions of transcode are built into K3B in this particular instance, not knowing what OS he's installed, what distro. You'd have to just Google how to install transcode on that OS or something. So K3B works great. Apparently he's got some unresolved dependencies, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
That's good. We'll check on that. Okay, last, before you have to bug out, since you are a Kubuntu user, which is the KDE desktop version of Ubuntu, we have a new person who is asking about the ease of accessing Zoom on a KDE. Now, to let everybody know, just like Judy sends you out the link, I send out a link for my team for this workshop. And when you get the link from me, he can't really demo it because he's on Zoom, but when I get the link or I send you the link, what do you do on Kubuntu to get connected today?
If you click on the link and you don't have the Zoom app installed, I believe it starts up your browser or a tab in your browser and you log in that way. I've had Zoom installed for a long time and it will launch the app. The app is generally, Zoom is one of those programs that is not distributed via the OS's, the distro's repository, because it's closed source. Same thing that Bill was talking about with Chrome. So you go to zoom.us, let's see.
Correct.
Zoom.us. Actually, product solution. Actually, the easiest way to do it is say, download Zoom for Linux. Oh, here's the installers here. Here's the installers. Go to Linux. You can pick 32-bit. Everybody's 64-bit, but it will ask you which one you want. And Bill discussed this earlier. The bottom 1, 2, 3, 4 of these are Red Hat derivatives, and they would take the RPM version. It'll download a .rpm file, and you'll have to install it. These 3 are actually Debian derivatives, and that'll download a deb file. Actually, let's do this. Let's say it's Ubuntu. I want 64-bit. They haven't updated this, but the latest version they call is 1604, but it'll work fine. You download it, and it's downloading. So you could, I've never done this from a file manager, but I just CD to downloads. And I'm going to see if there's any deb packages in there. The star is a wild card. ls-l is like the dir command. Actually, I think dir is aliased. Yeah, there it is. Okay, now you can see that we've got 2 debs there. That's an older version of Discord, which is a social manager, and the Zoom version. And from the command line, you would have to do sudo dpackage -i, like that. Whoops, wrong one. And I don't know if you could use apt for this. I'd have to try that sometime. But anyway, the dpackage command would install this Zoom version on top of my running app version. I'm not going to do that because it might kick me off. If it's the same version, it'll just install over it and won't change all your settings, any of your settings. If it's a newer version, it'll update it. And to their credit, Zoom is fairly good about keeping the Linux version up pretty close to the Windows version. And from then on, just click on a Zoom link and it will start up the application. Easy peasy.
Well, I'm going to throw in something. I'm using Peppermint, so I didn't see Peppermint listed on that download. So which one do I pick?
Well, what type of packages does Peppermint use?
Okay, so there's the key thing that,
yes.
that for those who've been around for a long time, you know that there are about 5 families of Linux that use different packages. So anything that's based off of Debian is their, ancestor would be using the deb file. Anything that's based off of Red Hat would be using the RPM. And then you got the OpenSUSE stuff. So that's the trick. You just have to know what package your family uses, and then you just find one. And they gave 3 different versions, but I don't know how much difference there are between those 3 different Zoom for the Ubuntu and Debian and Mint. But those are just the most popular Debian ones, so they have those listed. So for Jane, hopefully all you need to do is make sure you've got Zoom installed. Then when you get the link, you should just be able to click on the link and the app starts up and you get logged in.
I have another Orv question. Will K3B run in Windows?
Let me Google that for you. I don't
Okay.
know.
Hey, Steve, Google it, please.
I'm thinking that way.
And for all of you guys, is there a Linux equivalent to Windows Control-Alt-Delete for ending locked tasks?
We have a kill program.
Yeah, Control-Alt-Escape.
Yeah. We have a screen that looks almost identical to that same thing, and you click on it and end the processor just like you do in that. But yeah, and we also have the in the command line, you can kill if you know what the processor number is. But I have a little icon that's on my desktop that if I have a program that's acting up, I click on it, click on that program, and it immediately closes it out. But yeah, if we do the Control-Alt-Escape, you get the same kind of menu, looks very identical. It shows you your graphs and everything like that. So, yep.
Actually, if you hit Control-Alt-Escape, your cursor changes to a skull and crossbones. And any window you click with that skull and crossbones will kill it.
Okay, so that's the same as the icon I keep on my desktop.
Yeah.
But
And yes, to answer your question, there is a K3B ported to Windows. Just Google search for it.
Thank you. John, could you add the kill stuff to an email and send it to me so I can put it in the follow-up material?
I will make a note right here.
Thank you so much. And here's my last question. Haven't spent too much time on this, but I'm using MS Publisher .pub files, and he would like to continue putting his newsletter together in a non-Windows environment. I suggested Scribus, but the only version of Publisher that it will import is Publisher 2000. I don't know how old that is. Do you guys have any better answer than that? My other answer was to do it in Writer and save it as a PDF, and nobody would know that it wasn't created in Publisher or Scribus.
Exactly. Yep.
That's the easy peasy way.
Yeah, I think that you know, if you were really elaborate with your newsletters and you wanted to be able to have Article 1 continue on page 3, that's what you do Scribus for. The other idea is you just start with Scribus and don't worry about importing old files into it.
Well,
hey, Judy.
He doesn't want to repeat it. And the thing is people who read PDF newsletters online do not want to be reading an article on page 1 and have to go to page 6 and find it. They want it all together. Yes, Orv?
An alternate to Scribus is Inkscape.
Oh, yeah, Inkscape.
Okay.
I have not used either one of them in a long time, and I'm sure they've evolved a lot from what I saw, so give it a shot. Hey, John, I got to bail.
Thanks so much, Orv. Have a happy new year, and we'll
Bye, guys.
See you in the new year with learning more about Linux.
You betcha. Bye, guys.
Right.
Have a happy new year.
Thank you.
All right, Tim.
Oh, sorry about that, but that was very good information Orb brought up. But I'm getting back to James's
Sure.
use of LibreOffice. Before Microsoft adopted the ability to edit and modify ODT files, it's a case where if you go into LibreOffice, the upper bar of the menu has tools. So if you look at tools, hit that, and the last option is options. And this allows you to take each individual app of LibreOffice and change the default from ODT type documents into Microsoft Office, the old doc file, or the newer docx files. And I usually use that on the text writer, calc, and Impress so that I can go back and forth with Windows, and I even do this on Mac. So I play with Windows, Mac, and Linux. And it just works.
My story is that I started with LibreOffice before it was even thought of LibreOffice. It started out as StarOffice as a free program. And I converted all of the computers in my middle school, about 200 of them, over to StarOffice because I only cost me $10 to buy the CD, put it on as many computers as I wanted. And of course, as prior to LibreOffice, it was very similar to Microsoft Office, but being new at the time, I taught people about save as if you needed to save it in a different format. The kids at school had no problem using StarOffice. They did their stuff, printed it out, everything was fine. But we ran into a problem because the teachers were taking classes at the local university and they were submitting what they typed up to the professors. And at that time, Microsoft had no clue what to do with the open document, and causing them all sorts of problems. The kids could handle save as, switch file type. Teachers couldn't. So finally, after another year, maybe the administration made me move everybody back to Microsoft Office. And so my campaign was, this was a extra, thousands of dollars mistake that adults couldn't handle. So yeah. Now, along with that, I need to mention that Mike reminded me, extensions aren't a problem, but with Linux, it is very case sensitive to file names. So you need to make sure that Windows wouldn't care. They treat the same file as the same name with capitals, lowers, and they just delete old files. So you that's their problem. But in Linux, we are case sensitive. So I also, in all my files, I don't leave spaces. I put either an underscore or a dash if I have multiple words for files, because in Linux, spaces in the command line does things, but I just tell people put dashes, underscores, for multiple file names, and then Windows has no problem with that if you have to share with that. But do watch out for case sensitivity on that.
And that was my last thing that I was going to say. I have nothing else in the chat box.
Okay, well, good. Well, we still got a lot to talk about.
So
hey, John.
Whoa.
John, who my neighbor to the east, had got a lot of snow more than I did. How you doing? I unmute.
Great. Greetings from Pittsburgh. Yeah. It's a balmy 41 here.
Yay!
After many days of sub-zero temperatures. So anyway, hey, I just wanted to shout out to Bill for a great presentation, and especially coming from a Windows, an all Windows person. I thought he did a fantastic job of showing his Linux Mint. So kudos to Bill. The other thing I wanted to mention is if you're trying to install Linux on an old machine, I suggest installing a solid state drive, because I had a 12-year-old laptop that I recently put Linux on, and I installed a solid state drive first before I did it. And I tell you what, it's like a brand new machine, and it's 12 years old and everything works great. So if you're thinking about doing that on an older machine, go out and get yourself a solid state drive. They're relatively cheap now. The prices have come down quite a bit. So that's what I wanted to say about that. The other thing, we talked about Ventoy a few workshops ago, and I finally got around to playing with it, and it works really slick and it's easy to use. And if you're into trying different distributions, it's just a matter of dragging and dropping the ISO file from wherever you have it downloaded to the thumb drive, And it's as simple as removing them is the same way. You just you drag it from the thumb drive off to wherever you want to save the ISO file. But Ventoy works great. It's really fast for the, I'm not sure if anybody's used it, but it boots up in like 10 seconds. It comes up to the menu on my machine, and then you can pick the distribution that you want to install into memory to try. So shout out to those guys at Ventoy that are doing that. It's a great tool for us Linux users. And then the other question well, this is sort of a question, and I know Orv left, but maybe somebody can answer it for me. Now, he downloaded that Zoom installation file. It was a .deb. Do you always have to install that through the terminal, or can you go about like clicking on it in where the file is downloaded? Because I've had issues in the past where I could not install it from the folder that it was saved in. And I noticed that Orv did it through the terminal. So I don't know if anybody has anything they could add to that
I don't think I didn't install mine through the terminal. I just clicked on the installation and it.
Yeah, that's right. You could do it with the Linux. It's nice that you have the two different choices. You want to do the terminal because it's fun to do it, you do it. But this morning on the laptop that I have set up, for if I need to show anything, it's the one that's called John's Linux demo. I got it all up and running, and then realized that because I had done what John had said and I put a new SSD in there, the last minute I realized, oh, I forgot to put Zoom on. So I just downloaded it, and then when the file was downloaded, double-click the file. It brings up the package GUI that told me I needed some dependents, and I just said install, and it ran through it. So I didn't do it with the command line, but you have the option. The trick with the command line that I've learned is that you have to know the exact spelling of the file name. And sometimes it isn't exactly what you think it might be. I've tried to do what John did. I've tried to use the command line to install the program, and it just wouldn't install. And then I found out, oh, it was that name dash something or underscore something. And once I found out what the actual true name was, hey, it installed fine. But the whole point that I bring out, with the Linux, and I was glad that Bill got to try the Linux or the command line to install Dropbox, is that you do not have to use the command line. There are people who use Linux all the time and they never do it. I've used the command line a little bit more because I've learned to do some things and it's fun, but command line is not anything nowadays. Years ago, I hear the stories that before I got involved with it, it was a lot of command line and a lot of people had trouble, but nowadays don't have to do it at all.
One particular point, generally, if you're using the command line, if you start typing in the first characters of the file name and just hit tab, it'll finish the rest of it on the command line.
Yeah, that's true. That's one of our little secrets.
Yeah, and if you've got more than one file, it'll list the files.
Yeah, so, do a double tab on that. Right. Well, the problem for me was that I was trying to download the file off the internet.
Okay. And
if you don't know the exact file name, then you don't have it. So yeah, thanks, John. Anything else?
Hey, what? Yeah. So if I'm using KDE, what file extension does KDE use?
It's a Ubuntu, so it's a deb file.
So it's a deb. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe I had downloaded the wrong file. I have to go back and check.
That's entirely possible. When you have a whole list to pick up, because there's the deb file, the RPM file, and then there's the one that Solaris uses, and then the one that Arch uses, and so yeah, I've done that too. If you try to It's sort of like putting the wrong kind of gas in your car. It doesn't work right.
Yep, that might have been the problem. So thanks for all the info.
Yeah. Andy.
As far as the GUI for installing programs, I did it for a long time. Just go to where you downloaded the deb file, and if you on the Linux that I'm running, if I right mouse click, the first option is open with the GDebi package installer. And that's like what you were saying, John. It just takes off and it does the whole thing.
Yeah, you have to be really careful. We ran into a problem in our Linux group that we were trying to install something, and we tried to just do, open, and we were using at the time Ubuntu. Ubuntu will automatically default to whatever program is in their repository. We wanted the newest version, and so we kept wondering what's going on. We would download the new one, tell it to open, and it would be the wrong one. And so we finally ended up on the Ubuntu ones. We had to download the GDebi package so that we could select, like Andy just said, select using that one, and then it installed the new one.
Yeah, that's probably what I did. Instead of going through the repository, I had downloaded it from somewhere, an application that was not in the repository. And then I went to the downloads, saw the file I had downloaded, and just a right mouse click, and it gives you the option to install it from there.
Yeah, and that's what we found. So we finally had to add that you have two choices, like install or use the D package. So, and that's another whole question of whether you should go outside of your repositories and get newer versions, because sometimes they're not always been tested to work right. But for things like I think it was OpenBox, I'm not OpenBox, VirtualBox, and for Zoom, I would want to get the one that's the newest one. I got to jump. I got a question because it's a person new wanted to ask, and it's the same kind of question that Judy asked a long time ago. ISO file, and the ISO stands for the International Statistical or something or other, but for Linux, it's the file that is created that you use to install on your computer. And I always called it an ISO, but I've been taught or told that it's not supposed to be merged, just like APCUG is not supposed to be APCUG. So it's an ISO file. And Linux or Windows has that, but they just don't call it that. It's an exe file that when you get, Windows, you double click and you install Windows, but it's basically what we consider a ISO file. But that's, is a standard kind of file that creates the what you need to do to be able to install it on the computer. Good. Till somebody else comes up with a question. Somebody brought up a point that for those of you that dual boot a Windows Linux laptop or desktop from a grub menu where it comes up and says, what do you want to use? And you can go back and forth between Linux and Windows. We do have to tell you that you are going to likely, International Standards Organization. Thanks, Thomas. You're going to run into a problem because Linux and Windows share or show you time in two different ways. Linux uses universal UTC world time, and Microsoft uses the local time. And if you go back and forth between a Windows and a Linux on a dual boot machine, your Windows time is going to be probably like 4 hours or so off. And that's because of the way the BIOS and the Linux operate. There are two different ways. You can either go into hard luck story to get into Windows to change how they do it, or you can do it easier with going into Linux and just say, Linux, don't use UTC. Personally, I don't like that because it's a Windows problem and I don't want to have to change Linux. easiest way that we took care of that in our computer club, where we had the 2 dual booting, is you just go into Windows, right click on the clock and say sync it, and it would go back together. We solved the problem by putting in 2 separate hard drives and did not have it booting with the grub. But yeah, so that'll happen. Drove us crazy for a while, and that's why we went to 2 separate hard drives and not dual booting that way. Judy.
That was one of my questions that I thought was important, that everybody knows what it stood for and how to pronounce it. My ISO question.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And Orv said that he uses the command line, et cetera, so much is because he was the administrator for Abbott Laboratories forever and ever. And he used it as in the business world, and they make medical devices.
Yeah. System administrators, sysops, will definitely be command line people and terminal. And it is fun when you learn about, there's a lot of things you can do in the command line that works faster, and you can do things like Orv has showed us, and we'll do more of that probably in the next year to come. Okay. We did have one question that I can't answer. Maybe I'll throw it open to anybody here. We have somebody that wants to take an Android phone and unlock it and put Ubuntu Touch on. Ubuntu tried for a while to come up with a operating system to work on a phone, but it's just kind of too hard to compete with Android system because it works so well. But has anybody had any experience with dealing with Ubuntu Touch with a cell phone? Personally, I think it's just it don't need to reinvent the wheel. The Android works, so it's Android is a Linux, so to put Ubuntu special on there. So I guess we're not going to be able to discuss that question. Cross that one off. I don't want to put her on the spot, but I'll ask Beth if she would be willing to talk to us and share what she did with her printer problem. If Beth doesn't want to do it, then I'll do it for her. Give her a second to see if she wants to. She's not raising her hand. Okay. We've talked before about printers, and sometimes printers are a little bit of a question with, oh, there's Beth, yay.
I'm sorry, I'm on an Android and it's giving me a lot of grief. Yeah, I had problems printing, and unfortunately I got into the system driver area, which is not a good place to be. But because John helped me, I was able to find the printer location, and that's what really helped me printing a test page. But what had happened was I could see from watching my printer queue that the document was sent. I could look at my printer and see that from the screen display that it was receiving it, but the printer absolutely made no hardware noise at all and never printed anything. There was nothing in my queue, although ironically, it says I have printed 22 documents or something like that. But because John told me to print a test page, I had downloaded the driver from Brother because I was having so much trouble, and got into the system print area and found out that I had 2 drivers there. One was the driver that the system had for me had that model name and everything on it. And that apparently was my default printer. When I test printed from the driver that I downloaded from Brother, I could print. But unfortunately, I had an additional problem because I could only print PDF documents, and finally realized that I had in my experimentation with Linux, I had tried some difficult 2-column with photos, and I think those particular documents were kind of corrupt. So that was my additional problem, I think. So I hope that is a good enough explanation.
That's perfect. And what we go back to is that the issue that there are so many printers out there that you can't really say they'll all work with everything, because they all have to have drivers. And to have Linux drivers, you've got to have somebody who's willing to take the time to convert, you know, a driver that works for Windows to work on Linux. So we always say HP should almost always have no problem, because they support Linux very well. In fact, most Linux operating systems are running a program called HP LIP, which is HP Linux imaging, program, and it makes any HP printer work. Now, I won't say every, because if you get a real old one, or you get one that was a very prototype one, might not. And so we can always usually say HP printers will be compatible with no problem. I have a brother, and I have a brother printer, and just like with Beth, I just went to Brother and downloaded the drivers for that printer, and I even downloaded the drivers for the scanner. And before I had done that, I could not get that thing to scan. But getting the drivers that are built for it works. So, check your, we gave you the website in the past where you can go and they'll tell you compatibility and which printers are most likely to work with you. But go to your printer's support page and see if they have drivers or Linux drivers, and then use those, because the generic drivers can work pretty good, but not always. So that was great. So it wasn't really a Linux problem with Beth, which I was glad to hear. It's just the problem of too many printers and getting drivers for everything. And the generic driver could not handle a complicated. I don't know if Beth tried the same printing with the new drivers that she did. I would hope that it should be able to do a 2-column, but that's the difference on the drivers. So that's great. Anybody else have?
I was just
Bill.
going to add that I have no problems with the printers installed themselves. So,
yeah, I think for the most part, printers install real well, but sometimes you can get better features if you have the specific driver installed.
so this is what I got.
Oh, yeah. Aha, you've got 2 different printers.
No, one's a laser and the other one's a inkjet.
Yeah, my inkjet died on me. I haven't done that for a while. Yeah, and so this is good, Bill, because this is the same kind of a GUI menu that you have with Windows to deal with your printers. And as Beth found out, you get into it and you can find out what's in the queue, and you can delete files that are in the queue, and customize. One thing, go to Bill, go to printer options. I want to check one thing on the left-hand side. Fourth one down. Yeah, I discovered that a couple times, because being universal, US letter was not the default selected printer type. It was more of an A something or other. So when things weren't printing right, I came back and checked, and I'm going, oh, they're not using an 8.5 by 11 page like they're supposed to. So once in a while you can check that, because that's, partly on universal. So that, and of course, in the older days, you'd have to install printers with a command line, but now you don't have to. We've got it here. Okay, over to Stu.
Yes, sir. You mentioned peppermint
Yes.
that you've used. Are they still developing peppermint?
Now, not very well. From my understanding is that the developer kind of said, I'm done. And some couple of the other guys that were on the development team have tried to do it, but I'm thinking that peppermint was nice while it was there. But that's the problem when you have people make their versions of Linux, trying to keep it up and keep it going.
I've had that before too.
Yeah. One of my members in the club had been using peppermint, but he's decided to switch off just because it's like somebody who makes a car that there's just 2 or 3 guys. We have a shop, we build cars. Well, it's going to have some problems in getting supplies and things fixed and whatever if it's not a big development team.
What have you found that would be a replacement for peppermint for like a low-end machine? Still run. You want to run 32 bits.
32 bits is going to be the real hard part because most distributions are dropping it. But we had to look up for one of our club members who had an old laptop, had a 32. We found some. I don't have my list here with them, but none of them would install. So we finally decided that it was a broken down computer. That's why it wouldn't install. But there are a few things. If we go to our distro watch that we usually use and say, what do you have for 32-bit? There are a few out there, and that's the problem. 32-bit is so old that it takes development time, but there are a few. MX and the one that MX also has, Antix, I think have a 32-bit still. But 32-bit has been produced in a long time.
I know.
Yeah. But there is a Linux. There's a couple of them. You might get to the ones where that I've played around with that are not graphical big desktops like the Mate and that, but it's one that's called a Windows Manager. They call a program called Open Box, and it's mostly right-click menus, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. It runs all the program. It just doesn't have the fancy graphical user interface.
Right.
I have a couple of questions.
Oh, good. Then we'll get to Thomas.
Should we be upgrading from Vanessa to Vera now or later?
Oh, that's an option. Since it's 21.1, I look at it more like if I was going to download Mint now, because it doesn't matter whether it's Cinnamon or Mate or XFCE, they're all the same. If I was going to install now, I would install 21.1 because that has all the updates that have been out since 21 came out months ago. But if you're running 21.0, you're getting most of those updates in updates that you get along the way. It's not the same as Windows every 6 months or whatever. That can have some major updates, but even with that, you can skip an update, and then the next time you update, you get all the stuff from the back. The biggest thing you do for any updates or upgrades is look to see what is different about it. Does it have anything that is getting you all excited? If it has some features that they're adding that you're not going to get through the updates, then you might say, oh yeah, I'll do it. Because in 6 months, 21.2 will be out, and I don't remember what her name is because we're going from Vanessa to Vera to the next V name in the alphabet. So
will the printer being on the network versus on a specific computer be an install problem?
No.
Nope.
Okay. I have done it in the past where I've had the printer hooked up to a specific desktop and the laptop can go through the network and print that way. Nowadays, the big thing is our printers are wireless or Bluetooth, and So that's not an issue there, but you can take, if you get a printer that is an N, D is for duplex, W is wireless, N for network, and plug it into your router, every device prints to it. But right now I can be upstairs on my phone and print to the brother.
Mhm. Thanks. This session has been one of the best.
Thomas.
Didn't say which Thomas. Hopefully it's me.
Oh, yeah, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Okay.
Thomas Kelly.
I have some. Okay, I have some really, really old computers. Like, I think I even have some. I think I have one 386, and I have some Windows 98 or 95 machines. Can they be used for anything with Unix, or is that just better used for just word processing?
Oh, with Linux, if you go, like, again, if we go to DistroWatch and you say, I've got a 386 machine, what distributions are out there for it, they'll give you a list. And the problem is they may not be a mainstream one, but there may be one out there that you can install on that computer and use it. But that's what's nice about that, because DistroWatch only lists the top 100. And there's more than that. So they might have one out there that works on an old 386 machine. And like I said, it might not be one that has a big fancy graphical desktop, but I like the simplicity of something like OpenBox, which is a program that Crunchbang would use. Can't remember the name of the one I was using, but everything's, the menu, just right click and a menu pops up. And so rather than have a menu button that pops up, you just right click and there's everything there for you. And it works faster because it doesn't have all that graphical.
So that type of distro, I end up using command line from what's everything then?
No, right click mouse.
Oh, okay. I tried Puppy Linux one time.
Yeah, okay. Same thing there. It would be a cousin to a Puppy Linux, which is another name. It's a lightweight one. So yeah, I would go to DistroWatch, say, what do you have for 386, and see what's still around.
Does DistroWatch also include like what processor and then say how much memory you have?
Yeah.
You pick a bunch of options to pick the best thing.
Yeah, because they'll tell you that they give you a review of the programs and we'll let you know. But Linux is the kind of thing that you can work, run Linux on under 2. 1 gig will run some Linux.
Thank you.
Andy.
Just my starting place on older machines is because of I use Mint normally. I go to its grandparent, the Debian.org, and I think they still have 32-bit Linux out there, but it's not a package with with all the bells and whistles like all the newer ones. But it's Debian, and it's you're going to have the Deb packages and a lot of the same repositories. Yeah,
good suggestion, Andy. Yeah, I call that the mothership. Head back to the mothership.
Yeah, because they had them all. So
yeah. Now for new people, the only issue, I don't call it an issue, the only thing about Debian is that Debian, the whole branch of Debian, is very security stable minded. They are slow to bring about new stuff until they've tested it out. So for somebody who wants real stability, Debian is the one that you go. The opposite is Arch. Arch, the minute something comes out, they put it in there and you get it. And if it hasn't been tested out enough, it could crash your machine. But Debian, is what Ubuntu comes from, what Mint comes from, and anybody that comes from Ubuntu and Debian, they're actually coming from, Debian. So I consider that the main one. So that's a good suggestion. Go to Debian.com and look for their 32-bit version. And it might not be a brand new one, but hey, if it makes your computer work. Thomas Kelly again.
In general, with Unix, if something locks up, I know I've used Solaris a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
And I could just go into the, it was a process manager and just kill a process, and that would resolve the problem. Are there problems with Unix on where it will lock the machine up entirely, so you can't even get to the process manager? And if you can't get to it, is there a similar method where you go to a different machine and do a remote login to kill processes?
Yep. I have a problem with my computer that I built, something with we can't isolate with graphics, and I'll be going along fine, and all of a sudden graphics will lock up. I can be watching a YouTube, I can still be listening to it, but it doesn't move. And it also affects, because graphics affects the keyboard and mouse. I have no keyboard, no mouse, but the computer is just running. I've had it where it can run in the background. I was doing an upgrade or something, and the upgrade went completely through because everything was working except for, you know, the graphics. So all I can do is push the restart button and start it up. But the advantage of the terminal, if I go to another computer like Orv showed today and SSH into my computer, I can shut it down correctly, or I could even go in and find the process that was not working, because there's a command line program that does the same thing as the thing we talked about earlier, Control-Alt-Delete for Windows, that goes in and gives you a list. It's called HTOP, and you can find out what's stuck and kill the process that way. So yeah, that's another advantage of being able to use the terminal from a second computer to access the first one.
Yeah, I used to do that at work sometimes, and our computer would just freeze, and it was in a business environment, so we had to solve it. And
yeah,
we didn't really want to power down the computer as a solution, because that was not a good way to do things.
No,
So
it's not. Luckily,
so
with the Linux, go ahead.
Yeah, it was Solaris, but anyway, which is Unix, actually, I think it is. But anyway, so what we would do is I'd go to a different computer and do remote login, and we didn't know much what I was doing. I just kill processes until the other computer just rebooted, essentially.
Yeah.
So it wasn't very elegant, but it was better than calling the sysops.
Yeah,
there's gonna be some delay for that.
Yeah.
Depending on how locked up your machine is, SSH might not work.
Yeah, well, it's a start.
In which case, your choice might be power it off and restart, which is a bad thing to do. You don't want to do that on Linux.
Yeah. It isn't as bad as doing it on a Windows computer, but it's when that's your only choice. So
I've had to use that choice a few times. But
I have a funny story. The computer I'm on now has a bad battery, and so no point in leaving it in. I used to leave it plugged in all the time. The problem is when you're doing a shutdown or something, you got to remember that the battery's not there anymore, and you can't just click shutdown then hit the power strip.
Oh.
Because it has no battery, so it won't shut down. It'll just crash. It'll shut down, but it'll just wipe everything out. Improper shutdown.
Judy.
I have only one idea for a meeting in 2023. If you are sitting there thinking, gee, I'd like to learn about this or that or whatever, please put that in the chat box and we'll see what we can do. And don't forget, if you are somebody, we do have one person who is hoping to eventually put a presentation together to be able to give it at a meeting, and she just nodded her head and smiled wonderfully. And so that's what we're looking for. We're all in this together. And I oftentimes just ask leading questions to get some discussion going. And but please, my name is Judy Talor, and you'll find me in the chat box and get those meeting ideas, etc., coming to us. Thank you so much. And while we've been on having our meeting, we've had 2 groups renew their membership for 2023.
Good. We've got, let's see, today's the 28th. 1, 2, 3 days left, and then you're inactive.
You're off my Christmas list. Your group will be inactive as of January 1st. I'm not fooling around.
And she's not going to check her list twice.
And Bill, one of those was Hot Springs, so cross that off your list.
Yay for regions 3 and 6.
Oh, you smarty pants.
Yeah. Andy.
Judy
2
has
cents
sent
on
you a message.
2 cents on the hung processes. It goes beyond the hung process, and it touches on one of Judy's favorites of backups. Windows, Linux, whatever. What I got in the habit of doing years and years ago is when I set up a computer, in addition to my username going on there, I also put in a second user, a backdoor, emergency, a bailout, or whatever. Now, a couple of times, if Linux is hung, yes, there are times when even with SSH, you can't get in, generally because the user is hung up. It's not the system is hung, the user is hung up.
Yep.
So if you try to SSH in as the same user, you're going up against a brick wall. So by having that second user set up, you have another way to get in, and you can go in, get to the root authority, and you can kill off processes like that.
That's
so,
right.
like I said, just an idea, a second way, and it works much better on Linux because it's built to be multi-user. Windows, it's a little bit tougher, but always having at least 2 users set up has served me well over the years.
How about writing that up and sending it to me, and I will add it to the follow-up material.
Okay, sure, Judy.
Thanks much, Andy. And we will be doing backup again in March because it is World Backup Day on March 31st. You all have that to look forward to if you are one of those people that is a silly person that doesn't back up.
And it's your favorite topic.
Yeah, one of them. To go along with Andy, I have my computer set up, and I love keyboard shortcuts, and they're easy to set up, in Linux. And I have 2 shortcuts: Control-Alt-Delete that everybody knows about, and Control-Alt-Backspace. And don't ask me right now which is which, but one of those logs me out, and one of them reboots the computer. And so, as Andy said, if it might be that the program's messed up, and I've had this where I can do, I can't remember now which one is which. I'll have to go look it up again. And I've done it where I've logged out. And of course, that'll shut down everything that was working in the beginning, and then I can get back in because I'm, getting the boot. Or I can do the other one, which will reboot the machine, which is better than pushing the button on the computer.
John,
Yep.
Is there a cheat sheet for Linux shortcuts like you're talking about, or do you have to create them yourselves, or is it different for every version that you use?
In the Mint system and a few others, there are preset shortcuts. In my Mint Mate, which is what Bill's got, I'll have to show him about that. There's probably about 50 shortcuts set up, and I can add more. So the Control-Delete and the Control-Backspace, I think, were already set for logging off, logging in, and a whole bunch of others. And then I've created my own so that, because I'm a keyboard nut, so I can open up programs with a keyboard shortcut. I can get to my files with the 2 keyboards. But for us, no, you don't have to create them all. Sometimes what I've done is I've changed what they had as the default keys and made it to ones that make sense to me.
Okay, because I want to add stuff like that to the left-hand side of the web page when I put it all back together again. So I'm assuming I can just Google and they will pop out at me and I can link to them.
Yeah, in the distros, we have, like in Bill's, if he goes to his accessories, he has a program called Keyboard Shortcuts. And when he goes there, he'll see the whole list of shortcuts. Ubuntu, I think when we did that with them, they had a list like this, and Mint had a list like this. So that is, yeah. So Bill, go ahead, go to your accessories. Now do this, just type on your, in the white box. Now go to white box, just start typing keyboard. Show you how to do that one. There it is, the middle one, keyboard shortcuts.
Too cool.
And then just click on that. And here in Mint, Mate, and he can scroll down, you can see all the ones that are already pre-set up. Oh, log out. Okay, hold on a second. Scroll down just a little bit. I saw the reboot. Yeah, shutdown is Control-Alt-Delete. So I did the log out is Control-Alt-Backspace. Back me out. That's what I did.
Oh, how clever you are.
The normal typical assignment for Control-Alt-Backspace is it will kill the windowing system and give you a just give you a shell prompt, or it may log you out completely. That's frequently what the Control-Alt-Backspace does by itself.
Yeah. And for us, it's more advanced. I've got the Control-F key that will back me out to the terminal, one of 3 terminals.
Yeah.
So that's that. So for us, that they're already there. You just have to go in and learn which one to use. And then at the very bottom, there's an add button, and so you can add your own personal ones, like I've done. And you just have to, it's a little bit tricky. You have to give it a name, find the application to know what the command to run it. And I have a whole bunch of those done.
Cool.
Kevin.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'm enjoying today's presentation. Thank you, Bill, for everything. And John, I can't tell you how much I'm appreciating all of your technical stuff that you're sharing today. Usually I just kind of sense you're giving a presentation of something, but you're just throwing in all this great techno stuff, and I'm really loving that.
Thank you.
On the command, I think it was from Andy. He was talking about SSHing into a locked machine. And are you saying, because I think this is what you're saying, but I'm just this kind of like a little, it's not a mind explosion. It's just kind of like a nice little firecracker. Are you saying you can access and log into a second user on a machine that apparently is locked to the user that's using that machine? And even though he's locked up, you can actually literally log in as a second user and get a full GUI interface and interact with the whole machine.
Not exactly a full GUI. It's mostly command line, except now Orv taught me today that if you put that minus capital X, which means X is for the graphical user interface, that a specific program will open up in graphical. But I think, Craig and everybody would agree that the main reason is that you would SSH into that computer so that you can get in and do a normal shutdown, which then won't cause any real serious problems.
Yeah, but John,
sometimes that doesn't work.
Yeah. Andy?
The program, if you're running a program, you're probably running it as a regular user, not as root.
Yeah.
So if that one program is the problem, that's what's keeping things frozen up or, chewing up all the resources. If you're able to log in as a second user and then change to, go over through sudo or whatever and get the root privilege, you can kill that other user process.
So you could go into that other user's login environment and zap a program running under his user.
Yes,
correct. Because you're gonna go in as root.
You are root. You are God.
Yeah.
You can kill anybody and everything.
And you're looking as God, as all of those that first user and possibly second user, as they're logged in, you get to mess with them any way you want.
No.
Right.
Well,
now,
yes, but usually you're going to go in.
If they were running something as an elevated user, if they were running, say, installing a program, and they already had elevated privilege, then you're going to be between a rock and a hard place. Probably not going to go anywhere. But if they were just playing around with something and, you know, for lack of a better example, playing with a spreadsheet and turn something into an endless loop and the thing is just sitting there crunching away and it's using up all the resources. If you can get in, well, the bottom line is it's better than hitting the magic button. Before you hit the magic button, it's something else to try if you have another machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was somebody that had said something about it's really not. So I'm hearing different things about the magic button. Like I'm assuming you mean like the physical reset or powering the machine off and powering it back on.
Yes.
If you in Windows, I mean, if push comes to shove and you have to do it, you have to do it. And usually pretty much everything comes back okay. You know, it's not really the end of the world or anything when you do that. I don't, is it the same in Linux where if you do hit the power button off, things will still boot up and life isn't gonna end as we know it, right?
It better not, because I've had to do that on that machine when the graphics locks up. You know, I have to just go there, hit the reboot, and just reboots back up.
Most of the new file systems are journaled, so they can handle things like pulling the rug out from under it by pressing the power button, so they can recover when they reboot. Older file systems, you have to actually frequently do a file system check. And if that file system's big, that file system check can take a long time, like over an hour.
I want to say thank you to Craig, especially for that, and everybody else that's talking. This is great. And then, if I may, John, when you said the capital X, you know, in the line, and when you're going to start a specific program, and again, I'm lighter than I wish I was in Linux. Could that program you start just be the GUI interface?
No, I think from what I learned today from Orv is that you're in the terminal, you're able to say, open up a graphical program so that I can see it on my computer.
Isn't the GUI interface a graphical program?
Well, the GUI is the graphical user interface, named for anything that you can see that's not text-based.
But isn't I don't speak Linux well enough. You guys have said in the past that there are many variants of the graphical user interface that Linux supports, and that basic interface is a program.
Well, it's the desktop that is composed of lots of components that make what you see in a Windows desktop as opposed to a text-based.
Right, and that program that has all those components is a program.
Yeah, external.
So isn't that something that could be run with the capital X?
It's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
I love you guys that you know this stuff. This is great. What's up?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just telling you things that you make me think of. No, because that's what the X is for. The X is for the X terminal, so that it shows a graphical.
I don't remember the details, but there is a way that when you do SSH into a machine, you can tell it, you have to set up the display environment variable and a bunch of other stuff that you can tunnel the graphical stuff back through the SSH channel onto your machine. It's not easy to set up. I don't remember the details. I'd have to do a lot of research, and maybe I can spend some time trying to figure that out and present it at a future thing.
Now, Kevin, well, one of the other options
Judy would like that.
Yeah, is that if you would have something like AnyDesk that we've talked about before running all the time on both computers, then computer B uses AnyDesk and gets a hold of the graphical and can work on it. But as Andy has pointed out, it just depends on how bad that other computer is messed up as to what you can actually do.
Yeah.
Rich, you've been waiting for a while.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Oh, of course. Rich. Rich, you need to unmute yourself if you're still there.
Rich Lang.
Back to Jim Colley, Coyle.
He's fuzzy.
Yeah. So am I. It's have to unmute Jim.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm more used to the Windows terminology. When you say root, is that the same as an administrator account?
Yes,
be
but
in Windows?
even bigger than that.
So if I set up a second user as the other gentleman suggested, then that would be an account that accesses the root. Is that the idea?
No, in Linux, this is what I like about Linux. In Linux, when you create the user, general users, unless you make a very standard user, you are all root, but you have to have root permission. So right now on my laptop, I'm logged in as a standard user by default, but I have root permission. I've been given that permission. So if I go in and log into root or super user or sudo and give the password, then I have administrative rights. Windows doesn't work that way. You're either an admin or you're a standard user. But even in Windows, if you're a standard user and you try to do something that requires administrative, it pops up and says, pick an administrator and give the password in order to do what you do.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking this question is I've had this problem with my Windows machine where for some reason, I can't shut it off without, powering down.
Yeah, something's locked up.
Right. So anyway, that sounds like a useful capability.
But I want to point out something. When you are acting as the root user, the God, as Mr. Kennedy says. In fact, I have an alias, God, that gives me root.
I got you.
Mortal takes me back to my mortal self.
Yeah.
You do not want to routinely run as the root user. In fact, I have a bunch of Raspberry Pis which run Linux. I don't even define a password for the root user, which means you can't log in as root directly. It won't let you.
Yeah.
The only way in on my machines is to log in as a regular user and use sudo. SU doesn't work if you don't have a password for the root user, but sudo will. And I can say sudo and run a command, and I can say sudo space in the name of the shell to run that shell as root. But be very careful because you can do major damage when you're logged in as root. And you know how I know that?
Yes, we all must have, number of us do that.
One day, years ago, I actually changed the permission for the /etc folder. When that command ended, things started looking real weird. I'd do ls and it wouldn't put names in where they root the group and all that stuff because it couldn't get at the file. Fortunately, I was still logged in because if I'd logged out, that would have been it.
Yeah.
But I was able to just look around and I said, oh, how the hell did I do that? And change the permission back the way it was. And then everything was normal again.
Yeah.
What's
nice in distros like Mint, especially, and a few others, when you go into the command line and you do a sudo to do something, it's on a timer. And afterwards, it automatically takes it away. When you go in like Orv did as SU, super user, you stay a super user until you log out of super user.
Yeah.
And so that's why he's been doing this a lot longer and stuff. So I don't recommend, people doing use sudo. And then if you forget, the timer takes you back to your old way.
Right. The other thing I would suggest is in the configuration file for SSH, go in there and there's a parameter in that config file that it says permit root login. And I set that to no, so I can never SSH in as the root user. I have to log in as whatever user is defined on that machine, and then use sudo to become root. And that's all for security reasons, because if you have port 22 open on your router out onto the internet, somebody could get to your machine and log in as root if they know the password.
Yeah.
And you want to absolutely not allow that to happen.
Yeah. The big difference that I see between the Windows and Linux is the first user in Windows is always an admin user. The first user in Linux is always has super user rights. But with Linux, I mean, with Windows, if you log in as an admin, you're an admin the whole time you are on that computer. When you log in with Linux, yes, I have that super user rights, but when I first log in, I'm logging in as a standard user until I ask to be elevated. And so that's why, for me, Linux is so much safer than running an admin as in Windows.
But don't routinely do it. I used to
Absolutely.
do that.
Oh no, I never log in as root.
Yeah, you can get yourself in a world of trouble doing that.
Yeah. Rich, I saw your picture come up.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I have Mint Mate 20.1.
Good.
When I'm doing my updates, a lot of times, not always, I'll get saying that they can't load all the repositories.
Yep.
But I run my update anyways, and it comes back saying that it's up to date. What is that all about?
The repositories is like a mall with a lot of different stores.
Okay.
And one day happens, you go to the mall and not every store is open. You can't pick up everything that you want. And so, well, you're up to date on what you were trying to do because you got the ones that were open. We get this a lot. I get it too. They just can't go. There's always the internet problem that we need to go to this store and the internet to that store isn't working. And 5 minutes later, you do an update. It says you got the updates and then you get it. So all you do is do your updates. If they all don't go through, you do it again later.
Okay, so that's not a big problem then, actually.
Not to me.
Okay, another observation that I have is I've had Zoom on this computer for quite a while, and then all of a sudden it wouldn't work. It said I had to update, and I would update it, and I would get, after I tried it, I would get a message that says you're using the latest version, but I still couldn't do it. It still would not work. What I had to do was I went in and I took Zoom completely out, and through the terminal, and then I added it again and everything was fine and I got the latest version.
Yeah, and I'll let you on a little secret too about the Zoom. I, as the Zoom host, I control what versions of Zoom will work. I can go in and the settings, and if you're using a Zoom older than what I want you to use, you can't get in.
Okay.
But yeah, programs, everybody on here will tell you programs go bad, they glitch. And what's nice with Linux is everything is free. So delete it and install it back in. You're not losing any money on it.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with these meetings, but I have with some other ones. And so maybe that was their settings, eh?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't gone in to see how far I allow going back, but I don't make it so that everybody has to have the newest one because sometimes that's not always possible. But you can't go back very far in Zoom without having to update.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks much. And John, I want to thank you for a lot of times we're back and forth. I haven't talked to you recently or recently online, but you've been a great help and I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's why we're here, members helping members.
I would suggest that most people have Zoom no older than 3 or 4 months. If it's that old, it's time to update.
Right. It's kind of neat that I can control that. I can just hit the button and say,
I didn't know you could do that with Zoom.
Yeah. In fact, just for those people who are Zoom hosts too, you can do it for each platform. So I can go in and say Windows have to be this new, Linux has to be this new.
Of course, if you go in with the web interface, you're always using the latest and
Right.
great,
Yeah.
which is an advantage of using the web version.
Yeah. Thomas, before we run out of time.
Just going back again to about freezing systems.
Yeah.
You know, as people are saying, there's varying degrees of being frozen. You know, like you can do Control-Alt-Delete and kill things with a task manager, or you can press. I think it's well, that from there that doesn't kill the thing. You can hold it down, hold the power button down, and it forces the shutdown. But that's the least desirable. And if that doesn't work, you kill the power, which is a little tricky on a laptop with a good battery. You got to pull the battery to power on, and that's
Sledgehammer works.
Pardon me? A hammer,
large hammer.
Sledgehammer will work.
yeah. But I know I got a few times where that the thing seems to work. I have another question about freezing. As I recall reading something about that, I think it's Firefox recently made a change to the way their thing works, and you can have a tab lock up, and you can just kill just that tab, and not kill the whole browser. I've not done any experiment with it yet, but it seems like a really good idea because having to reset your whole machine or something.
A lot of these new browsers run each tab as a separate process, which allows you to just kill the tab, which is a wonderful thing if one of them tends to start getting goofy. Right. That's the tech term.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I haven't done it, but I've had sometimes where a tab out there is unresponsive or something, and I don't really want to kill the entire browser. I'm going to reopen it again, but I haven't figured out exactly how to do it. It could be the browsers I'm using don't support killing tabs. Can someone tell you a bit about? I think Firefox does it. What's the process to do that? The key sequence, roughly, or conceptually, anyway, at least.
I don't know. Never tried it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just click on the X and close the tab.
Yeah, that's what I would just try doing. Hit the X.
And if it doesn't work,
it usually does. The X doesn't show. You have to move your cursor up
onto the tab,
and then you'll see the X on the tab, and just click on it. It'll close it.
I'll have to try that because I've had some problems where
if that doesn't work, it's time to get out that hammer.
Yeah, Judy.
Well,
would it be beneficial to have a Craig and John demo, so to speak, slowly of what you guys were talking about with the users and the su's and the sudos and the gods and the hoo-has and stuff like that, so people can see?
I don't have any GUI set up. I can do it.
I mean, just what you guys were talking about with the different users and all that good kind of stuff. And if you get hung up, this is what you do. You go in and do this, blah, blah, blah.
We can do that for a different workshop.
No, I know, not now, but I'll add that to my list because I do have some things.
Yeah, because that's just part of, ORV and the idea of sessions about terminal and
but do it very slowly and with a large font and all that good kind of stuff. Yeah. And Mr. James says he has one more thing to show with OneDrive and Dropbox and Linux. And let's go to Steve quickly, and he'll be our last question. And then over to Bill. Steve, you're on.
Okay, I don't know if it's the same in Linux, but in Windows, if a program is frozen and you can't see the X or the top of the bar, you can just use Alt F4, and that'll be the same as hitting the X that you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Alt F4 is a good thing to know if you're using Windows a lot.
It's one of our friends. Oh, Kevin, you snuck in. Bill, you're next.
Okay, no problem.
Unmute yourself.
Oh, is Kevin gonna talk?
Yeah, Kevin's going to talk really quick.
Okay, he's done.
You know, I just did a quick Google search and a test, and Control W will close the current Firefox tab that you're using, and Alt F4 will close a program, and oh crap! I tell you, this old age really sticks when you're 69 and you forget how to use
Oh God!
Control Alt tab.
I think
you're not that old.
69, you're a mere kid.
Baby.
I actually just had my birthday, December 12th, and the 69 is the last year of my being in the 60s. Alt F4 closes a program, and Alt F4. It's
Alt F4.
Alt F4 closes the window that's on top. Whatever's popped up.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank
you, Judy.
An 82-year-old just topped the 69 person there. Who couldn't
There you
remember
go.
what
There
it
you
was.
go.
What can I tell you?
I'm not qualified. I'm not qualified to talk about being 69 because I don't get that till March.
Oh.
Some of us can't remember when we were 69.
I know it. Hey, Bill, over to you, kiddo.
All
Because
right.
he is younger than me, so he's a kiddo.
Well, as I was telling you earlier, my quest to continue to be able to have a cross-platform, particularly synchronization, I made some discoveries with Dropbox. And when I installed it, of course, I got this icon on my panel. And when I click on that, it allows me to launch the Dropbox website. And this shows me all the files and folders stored in Dropbox. But another rather interesting thing I thought would be of interest to everyone is that it also gives me the ability to create a file or folder. So I can just click here on create, and I can go down and I have I can create a document, and I can use I can select Word or Google Docs. That's the same for presentations. I can use PowerPoint or Google Slides. Spreadsheet, I can use an Excel worksheet or Google Sheets. So what this does, if I click on a Word document, it's going to bring up a web-based version of Word. It'll say create file in, and I just click on create, and then the web-based version of Word will come up. And I can go ahead and create that document. So if you're used to using Word or any of the other Microsoft products, you can continue using that with these free versions of the web-based version. And what that will do when you save it, it will save it to your Dropbox. So that's one way that you can continue. If you don't want to use LibreOffice, you can continue using Word, at least something that you're regularly more familiar with. Now, the other thing you can also do is that, remember, you have a Microsoft license. Even though you decide to ditch Windows, the license is still valid. Your Microsoft account is still valid, which means that you can get to your basic OneDrive files because you were given a I believe I can't remember the exact amount of OneDrive storage that you get with the basic program. I want to say it's 15 gig, but somebody can correct me on that.
Yeah, it's 5 gigs.
5 gigs, okay.
15 is for Google.
Okay. 5 gig syncs. So what you can do here is that you can launch Firefox. And here in the search box, just type in OneDrive.com. And this will take you to the OneDrive, the web-based version of OneDrive. And as you can see here, all my files, everything that I have in my OneDrive folder is still there. Now, it's all dependent. Since I have Office 365 and I have tons of storage, I still have access to all my files and folders. Now, I'm not so sure that if you are, that you're going to be up against the limit if you just use the basic plan, but you can buy additional OneDrive storage if you so desire. But say, for instance, on this one, here's a folder that I created in a file, and so again, it launches the web-based version of Word. And then this actually is saved to OneDrive. So there's you can be able to use Linux and use some of the things that you're familiar with using the free versions of those applications. There's a free version of Dropbox, and there's the free, of course, there's the free version of OneDrive, and those are, of course, limited to the number of the amount of space that you're allocated with the free plans. So I just wanted to share that with you, and this has been my experience with trying to use Linux to my advantage, and I've been pretty happy with it. So that's all I have.
Thank you. And to be very honest about this, Bill has not been interested in Linux in any way, shape, or form. Period. End of report. And all of a sudden he decided he was going to give it a try because he got this extra laptop fall in his lap, so to speak. And he has had a really good time with it until he found he couldn't sync. And he said, I can't sync anything. I don't use any standalone thing. And so he figured out how to use Dropbox and make everything work in OneDrive. We were using Quick Assist last night, and I created the folder in his OneDrive and the test document and saved it in there. A lot of trials and tribulations with everything that we had going on, but he's really enjoying himself exploring a new frontier. And I do have to tell you, you Linux people have a much more colorful vocabulary than us old, ordinary, straight and strict Windows people. And I love that. A question for you, Craig. What webcam are you using? This person thinks it's the best one of the bunch. So let us know what webcam you were using by unmuting yourself.
I'm just using the built-in camera on my iMac.
There you go. So he's a Mac guy. And you will be getting a presentation via Craig and
Deborah Neff.
Deborah, I had it before that. And Deborah, and they are going to be talking about stuff with the iPad. They did the iPhone last time, and this time it's going to be on the iPad. Now, do you use Windows at all?
Me, I have a Windows laptop that I occasionally use.
Okay. And sometime you're going to have to show us your mirror, okay? Because you know I'm fascinated with
Well,
that.
I need to get it hung back on the wall. Because where I used to have it, I have a TV hanging there.
Oh, darn. Well, I need to see that.
That is on my list to get done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Over to you, John. I think we're ready to walk it off.
Finishing up on Bill, it doesn't matter whether it's Dropbox, OneDrive, iDrive, I use pCloud. The storage works for everything. I have a Windows and my lap and all my Linux. I share files back and forth. So, you know, it doesn't matter the operating system. It's what you need. The reason we use Linux is because it's more secure. It's free. It works on older devices. And all the software is free. Mentioned that once before. Hey, I want to thank, of course, for at the end of the year, thank our co-host Bill James and my best right-hand person, Judy, with all of the planning that we do for this. And I want to thank all of you for attending. I never thought 2 years ago that this would be a monthly meeting. And I wasn't going to do one in December because the third Wednesday that's traditionally Linux was Christmas week. And I said to Judy, nope, we're not going to do anything. We finished up our months of Linux as a Windows user. And she said, well, I hate not to because I couldn't get anybody else. We only would have one this month. So I said, okay, I'll do it, but it won't be Christmas week. And we're just gonna, we'll just do a roundtable. And if anybody comes, we talk. And if they all finish talking and we're done in 15 minutes, we're done in 15 minutes. But we've gone the full length, and I really appreciate all of the participants. I appreciate Bill sharing his Linux. That made me really happy to know that he's given it a try. And those others of you who are out there that before we got going didn't know much about Linux. So it's been a great couple of years. I think we'll continue. We'll try to figure out what we want to do in the months to come, what format we want to use. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I wish you the best during your holiday seasons. And Judy, you've got another little bit.
Yes, it took me 6 months to convince him when I started this in May of 2020, because I thought APCUG needed to offer our member group something because we were all locked down. And Bill said, yes, Judy, I'll do Windows. And gee, and after that, he did on his own home automation. And I kept pestering our good friend John here. And he finally said, okay, if I can get some help. And that was Orv Beach. And he will be giving a presentation on ham operator, as one of the questions said there. Craig, you're on, and then we're out of here.
I just wanted to say that what Bill did is most people would just stick their toe in the pool to figure out about Linux. What Bill did is he jumped in. And he's learned a lot in the last month or so.
Try 2 weeks.
Yep.
Oh, that's even more impressive.
And I appreciate all the people who have gone to these workshops and have followed up with questions and sent me and my team interesting things about questions and problems and solutions. And I hope that since we've started this, that there are some people who are making an adventure into the Linux world and found out that it's pretty good. So as we end 2022, 22 years since the crash of the computers, we'll head into 23 and have a great one. See you in the new year, everybody.
And don't forget about me. I got to come up with 4 things every single month. Love to have your other half, maybe Windows volunteer or somebody from your group who has done a cool presentation that you think they should share with the world. Thank you so much. Happy 2023, and may you all get new members in your groups.
That would be great.